This week we're going to touch on Jesus as he's in a relationship with the people of God, just a little bit. Just wanted to introduce the topic before next week when we expand on it just a little bit further. So basically in the Old Testament we see Israel and God being described as in a relationship. We see that when Israel strays from God, God claims that his people are cheating on him. He talks about how they're being unfaithful to him, like when they go to the idols and when they worship other gods. God is really upset because the relationship that they have is one that's like bonded. When God chose Moses to lead the people out, he was very intentional about who his people were and his love for them. And so we can kind of see this touched on with Jesus in Matthew 9, verses 14 through 14 to 15. So I'll just read that passage a little bit, and then we'll talk just a little bit about that. So Matthew 9, verses 14 and 15. Then the disciples of John came to him, saying, "Why do we and the Pharisees fast often, but your disciples do not fast?" And Jesus said to them, "The wedding guests cannot mourn as long as the bridegroom is with them, can they? The days will come when the bridegroom is taken away from them, and then they will fast." So basically we see Jesus really compare his relationship to the people in the way as a bride and groom. And so basically Jesus is saying how yes, his people are not fasting right now, but that is within the cultural context. People didn't fast at all during weddings. It would seem rude. The weddings were quite flamboyant. They lasted a while and they were extravagant. And so basically what Jesus is saying is he's like, hey, well, you know, this is like re-celebrating the wedding that God and the people have. It's almost like a renewal or continuation of the covenant of David. So it's something to celebrate when God is here. And so basically he's like, afterwards they can fast, but for right now we're celebrating. And so I can tell you one thing for sure, and that is that Jesus is worth celebrating. Jesus sacrificed himself, committed his life to loving us, loved God, and so between these two things, like he's really this huge loving bond between us and God, and it's almost like a renewal of the marriage that's happened. And so that is definitely worth celebrating. Everything that Jesus has done, everything that he did, the controversial for the time as he's breaking the molds, it's worth celebrating, and it's something to look back on with love, with admiration, with just like the utmost respect. Just loving Jesus and all that he did and celebrating who he was as a person. All right, and then next week we will touch more on the idea of God and Jesus being in a relationship with us and what that means for us and like why that happened. So thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you next week.